to make you live in a safer community. We ensure that we rope the individual into the prevention of fires, where we are saying that fires are a shared responsibility. So as an individual, you also have a role to play to prevent the fires from coming to your respective houses. This is one of the programs that we are coming to you from the Fire Service TV and ensuring that you adhere to some of these regulations such that it will not be problematic in the near future. Our basic objective is to prevent fires from coming to your respective houses. Once again, it is another Tuesday, and I'm here with my resource people. My name is Station Officer 1, Michael Walter Okine, and I'm sitting in for ADO 1, Juan Ajay Jamesi, who is still in the honeymoon mood. So, before I introduce my guest to you, let me also say that we apologize for starting late today. In fact, we had some technical issues, and we believe you would bear with us. So before I introduce my guests, let us take a short break, and then when we are back, I'll introduce them to you. Hello, cherished viewers. You are welcome back. In fact, I still have my resource people here, and I'm still privileged to be interviewing DCFO retired, that is Deputy Chief Officer retired, Kwame Kwatin, who also doubles as my boss. He's still looking very young. I remember when I joined the service, once he called me and then said, "Look, Walter," and I said, "Sir, you look at your height, make sure the food you eat is your medicine. Other than that, you will be taking your medicine as food." And I've been adhering to what he told me a couple of years back. I think it's still telling on him. He's been eating his food as what is medicine, and not medicine as food. And then at the extreme end is Reuben Kwesiboche. I prefer to call him ADO1 Kwesiboche. He is also one of the bigger shots when you come to the fire safety departments. I remember serving under him. And then, so I have two great people here who would help us go through this Fire Precautionary Premises Regulations Act that mandates the fire service to offer some regulations when it comes to building and its related issues. And let me start by asking, that is LI 1724, the Fire Precaution Premises Regulations Act, that is 2003. So let me start by asking. In fact, the last time, sir, Deputy Kwatin, we touched on a number of things. But from a popular request, people would like to revisit some of these things. So we want to go back again. So when we talk about adequate fire safety measures by the law, that is LI 1724, what do we mean by adequate fire safety measures?
Thank you very much. When we talk about adequate fire safety measures, then we must understand what fire safety measures are. Basically, in the law, there are three means of escape. That is how you get out of the building or into the building in an emergency. Then you have detection and warning systems. It means by which you'll be alerted that there's a fire or there's an emergency in the building. and the third one is the firefighting. That is the first aid facility that you have to use to suppress the fire before you call in the fire service. So when we talk about means of escape, that is how to get up of the building, it's about doors, staircases, corridors, and the kind of stairs that you have to put in place. Lifts are used to get into other floors, but they are not considered as means of escape in case of fire situation because they are operated on electrical lines, and apart from that, it's not recommended. In the laws of safety, lifts are not allowed. So when we talk about adequate means of escape, it means that you have enough staircase, the size of the staircase is quite enough to allow at least two people to move in one direction, or one moving in the other direction, another one in the opposite direction. So it should be quite big enough to allow people to move. But the size of this staircase will be determined by the number of people who are occupying the building. If it's your normal house, about 3 or 2 feet width is all right. But where you have more people living in that particular premises, like a stadium or in a theater or in a conference room, the size and the arrangements of the distance will determine the kind of number of stairways that you must have. So that is it. When it comes to the detection and warning system, it depends on the kind of structure that
I said before you go to the detection and warning systems, I want to talk of windows. It has become a major problem. Do windows also serve as an alternative exit?
As a matter of fact, windows are not considered as means of escape. So it is because you need ventilation in the room, and to maybe to inform or to get smoke out of the building. It is mostly supposed to be used by firefighters. When you are in and there's a fire in the building, you close the windows so you can contain the air, so air will not blow. But when the firefighters come and they can see the seat of the fire, they can then open the windows to let the smoke get out. Then they can go closer to the fire and put it up.
So if I understand what you are saying, the window does not serve as a means of what?
It is not.
Escape.
It's not a means of escape because I can't imagine you being on the 5th floor and using the window as a means of escape. If you jump from that side onto the floor, you should consider yourself dead.
So we are still on means of escape.
It's not a means of escape.
I hear you mentioned corridors, staircase, alternative exits, and other things. So they serve as what? Means of escape.
They allow you to live.
What the law says, or let's look at it practically. So in a typical Ghanaian home, where a chamber and a hall with only one exit, in case the main exit way is obstructed, probably with fire, in an emergency, how do you get out from such a premises?
That's a good question, but it depends on the design. I think every architect or draftsman will never design a chamber and hall and give it one exit, provided that particular self-contained has a kitchen. There's always a door at the kitchen which serves as an alternative to the front. So if there's a fire in the kitchen, you can use the hall to get out. If there's a fire in the hall, you can also use the kitchen to get out. So it is always advisable and appropriate to have 2 means of escape, at least 2 in every house. But in our designs that we have had, chamber and hall, self-contained, we always only have one exit.
So that means most of these people will be trapped in an emergency.
Be trapped.
Sensei, you also said the lift is not a means of escape. Lately, we can all see a lot of structures springing up, high-rise buildings. And most of them, they have the lift. And I'm on the 15th floor, like Villaggio. In an emergency, how do I evacuate?
Yes, in such structures, there's always an emergency exit provided. Tall buildings above by the normal standard, about 4 5th floor should have an emergency exit. They are different from the hallways or the core circulation area where the lift is. They are always located at the extreme ends of the structure. Even though they are contained, so sometimes you can't see it. But where they don't have it there, you will see the external staircase provided sometimes in the metal form. Example, when you go to the airport, you see on the control tower, you will see that there's a staircase that is outside the structure. It's not in the building. I'm sure that came as an afterthought when they realized that in an emergency they can all not use the middle one, but they have to get an external. So some of the structures that you see, you might see it as a block, but they have maybe the emergency exit which is provided. For instance, if you go to National Petroleum Authority building, the one at Fiesta Royal,
yes, Fiesta Royal,
that building there, they have emergency exits at the ends, but they are enclosed. They are inside the building. So they don't use the stairs.
As a layman,
yes.
What are the indicators that will tell me that there is an emergency exit here? Do we have any evacuation plans or something that are provided on such structures?
In such buildings which are normally used by the public, there should be markings in there to tell you exit directional sign. Then they will point, when you see the staircase or the area, they will put it emergency exit. And an arrow will show you that this is the emergency exit and you must move in that direction. So it's part of the means of escape to give information in the form of directions and signs to tell whoever has come into the premises that this means that you pass or you can use the side, or there's a dead end, you cannot go through that. So there's an information displayed. And then we also have what we call the evacuation plan. On each floor, the exits are indicated on the drawing, which is pasted within the staircase area. So you have to look at it and say, when I'm here or I'm in this room, this is where I get out from. But the workers there know the routes. So if there's a stranger or a visitor to you, then he has to look at the signs and get out if there's nobody on the corridor. But if there's somebody there, he will direct the person to the exit, not to use the staircase as
all right.
means of escape.
Then when there are people who are supposed to give directions, what is the role of the fire warden on that building? And then when you are done with that one, you tell me, before this law, LI 1724, in 2003, there were a whole lot of structures that do not conform to the standards. What are we doing to those structures?
Thank you very much, sir. You see, let's look at it from this angle. Now, who is a fire warden first? I think they are well-trained people within the premises that has what it takes to control anything about fire safety. In regards
when
to
you say well-trained, who trained them?
That the fire service, trained by the fire service. So that in case of emergency, they will take care of the situation on the ground before the fire service arrives. Now, if there should be any fire outbreak, what a warden is supposed to do is to look at the situation on the ground that is probably calling for them to move from where the danger is or from where they are operating to a comparative safety place or a total utmost safety. Now, when it happens like that, what they are supposed to do is to control the movement
please,
of the
before
people.
you go, when you say a comparative safety, what is a comparative safety?
Thank you very much.
And what is a total?
The question is, the movement is supposed to be done in such a way that it is not at all times that they have to move completely out of the building, because it depends on the kind of job that they are doing. If, for instance, let's take, for instance, it's a hospital setting, okay, they are not supposed to go out completely, because the situation on the ground will determine whether they are supposed to move to where we are talking about or completely move out of the premises. So it's the movement of the people from a place of danger to a place within the same building, but not completely out of the premises. That is what we call a comparative safety. Now, so when
that is refuge.
That is it.
That
they
is
will
to take refuge there.
But as to whether they will take refuge there or not will depend on where they are taking the refuge. Because the situation where you put them there and the place is not fitted with appropriate, doors that will prevent the movement of, product of the burning process to attack them. You need not practice comparative safety. you have to move them away from there, because when you keep them there and the smoke is able to move into that particular place, it will threaten their life. So the wardens here are supposed to take care of all the situation on the ground, that is the movement of the people. And then if the situation is also calling for them to use the provided fire safety facilities, that the firefighting means, they have to deal with it whilst the people are moving out of the premises. So generally, a fire warden takes care of every fire situation within the premises.
And then you talked about the ultimate, which is the assembly point.
Yes, sir. Now, the ultimate, that is, you move out completely from the building and then get yourself assembled within the premises or outside the premises. The situation depends on what you are supposed to do. For instance, if your structure is such that when you move into the premises and you assemble yourself there, and per the way the design is, okay, the smoke or whatever that is burning will release a whole lot of product to come and affect you where you have assembled. It will not be appropriate for you to be there. So you have to relocate. So if that is not where you are supposed to assemble completely, the next place, which is outside the premises, will be your utmost what? Safety point.
Safety point. So what happens? Okay, you wanted to chip in something.
Add something. You know, the refuge you talked about are provided in some of the tall or high height. I'll give you an example. When you go to Golf House, within the core area, you will see a room that has been provided, written on it, refuge. And it's meant for disabled people or people with physically challenged, PWD, or eye problem, to move into that particular area. And then they have a means of communicating with, what do you call it, communication system in there to alert those on the floor or on the ground floor or fire incident responders that we are in this particular floor in this refuge room. The construction of that room is specific, that can withstand a fire resistance for about 2 hours. And that is where the fire service will, fire office, or the rescue officers will enter the building and go and rescue the person from there. So there are a special place that are provided in the core area for use. Then, as you talked about the comparative safety, is within the same premises, but some of the buildings, the corridors are too far, so they partition them with fire resistant constructions. So when he enters that particular area, he's in safety, but comparative, until he finally gets out of the building, which becomes total safety. So most of the escape routes that are staircase that I talked about, they all have a partition and firefighting, fire resistant doors. So the moment the person enters, so if he's on the 10th floor and he enters that particular staircase area, which has a fire door there, he's totally safe until he gets to the ground floor. So he's in comparative safety. That is what the difference is. When he gets out of the building and move out of the staircase on the ground floor and gets into the premises, then that person is in total safety. That's okay.
That is when we have body, and then that is where we do what? The head count.
The head count, yes.
Yeah, so those of you who do not know, we'll explain some of those things to you. Edu, director was talking about fire-resistant doors, fire-resistant, we hear fire-resistant wires, fire-resistant products, and all those things. What do we mean by those ones? What is it?
Okay, when they say fire-resistant doors, I've been telling people that sometimes they've been saying fireproof instead of saying fire resistance. I believe strongly that there's nothing called fireproof. As to whether it will be able to withstand the temperature or not will depend on the material that is made of it and then the heat that will be given off during the burning processes. It's fire resistant because they've tested the building where they are using the door. And I've realized that all the materials that were used to put up the structure when burning will not give off enough heat to break down the chemical composition of that door. So once that thing is calculated, they try as much as possible to ensure that it will exceed that temperature. So that if there's any fire break within the premises, it will be difficult for the fire to come out, or it will be difficult for the fire to go in there to attack people. So it's also designed with certain features. Some of them are having what we call smoke seals that prevents the smooth movement of smoke. Some of them are also having intumescent materials around it, so that in case of emergency, it will expand and seal all pinholes. And these things are there to prevent the smooth movement of what? The products of a burning process. And they are specially designed in such a way that when the fire starts, I mean, we have it in hours. Some are 1 hour, some are 2 hours, some are 3 hours. It depends on the occupancy. So the occupancy determines the kind of fire resistant door that you are supposed to use.
Okay.
I can add some to
Yes.
He has explained it very well. But why do we put a fire resistance? A fire resistance itself, or fire door, is to keep the fire and smoke within a confined area. So if you have a fire door, it means that within a period of 1 hour to 2 hours, that door will not give in for the fire to travel from one point to the other. By that time, the fire service will be there to put. So it's resisting the fire from. So when I see these new doors that are metal and these things, I ask and I say to myself, you are rather transmitting heat from one end to the other by the methods of what? Which convention or radiation, or you are just worsening the situation. So even though I'm not into talk about people's trade, but those are not fire doors.
Fire doors.
Hardcore wood, like what we call, I forgot that the high core, those hardcore wood are able to stand fire for about 1 hour or two before they give in. So these are the difference between a fire door and a fire.
Okay, so if I understand, what they are saying is that these fire doors or products are designed to withstand heat or the transfer of heat or smoke from one place to the other for a period of time. That was why he said, Eddie Obuche said, we don't have anything like fireproof. But those doors are designed to withstand heat or spread of fires for a longer period. They reduce the spread of fires for probably 1 hour, 2 hours per the designed. That is what they are supposed to do. That is, if I understand, in the layman's term, that is what we call. And there are areas within those premises that are designed to hold people before the fire service gets there and then to effect rescue. Sir, okay.
Fire-prone areas within the premises.
Areas within the premises. Okay, thank you. Like electrical rooms.
Kitchen, you know, where there's likely to, you know, every building has, you have, before you talk about fire safety, you must be able to design the fire risk assessment in the area and know the fire prone areas and design what will fit here that will not allow fire to spread from one end to the other.
Yes, sir. I wanted to ask this question. That before the law was passed, there were quite a number of structures that did not conform to some of these evacuation or means of escape. They did not meet those standards. But before I come to that, in your submission, you talked about the risk assessment. So when before constructions are done, we are supposed to know the occupancy, the number of people within the building that will determine the size of the doors, the size of staircase, and all these things. Are these engineers well informed and know, or it is done in conjunction with the fire service? Eddie Obuche, if you can touch on that one for us.
It's quite a loaded question.
Yes.
You know, an architect is trained to do a design that will make the building habitable. The fire expert or fire officer or fire inspector is to make sure that the design that he has made can let people move out of the building safely when there is fire, and the structure can be in place without collapsing when our friend the firefighters also get into the building to do the firefighting. Right. So they all have things that that must be maintained. That principle must be understood. So you, the fire officer who has been offered the drawing, should look at the drawing and be convinced that that place is safe when it comes to fire. You asked a very good question. All the buildings that you see in an area within Accra, where we call the World Trade Center, Heritage, those buildings there, were designed in Achampon's time. But let me tell you, those buildings have those firefighting facilities in them. Some of them have sprinklers. Some of them have landing valves. Some of them have detection and warning systems in. They use the British time, the British standard at that time, to construct those buildings. You'll be surprised to see that some of the buildings that you're talking about, they don't have external staircase, but they don't have external escape routes. But all the escape routes are external at the extreme ends. They have all those facilities. You see, the architects are trained in such a way that if you design a building and you have given the specifications, and then the building should collapse, the architect, the structural engineer, and all those people will be held liable to explain. That is why you, as a fire inspector, when you approve any drawing that this drawing and the firefighting facilities is able to handle this risk, and the problem comes and is not able to handle, both the consultant, the fire consultant, and the fire officer will have to understand themselves and see who was at fault. I brought a drawing with fire engineering, and this is what I said, and you approved it. Now this problem has come. How do you resolve it? So the two parties will have to work together. The architects work, or electrical engineer or mechanical engineer works with the fire safety officer to understand what is looking for and approves the drawing, so they don't have any problem. But when the structure collapses, it is not ahead of the architect, not the fire officer.
Yes, sir.
Because he goes by what you submitted.
Yes, sir.
That is it.
Let's look at this instance. Drawings are submitted to the Ghana National Fire Service for certification or permit. And then the review team looks at the exit ways, standards and everything and meets and conforms to that standard.
Yeah.
But then after construction, you go on site to inspect the same structure. And then you go and meet a different standard on site. What do you do about such a thing?
Before you issue a fire certificate, it means you must go site and look at what it's there. And it is always in the permit.
Sir, I want us to look at the permit before
yes, the permit is always written that after you have finished, you must inform the fire service and submit as built drawings. The as built is different from the proposed drawings that you have. So if you have done any changes and along the line you did not notify the fire service and had gone ahead to construct, to the fire service what is there is different from. So that's why the permit tells you that you don't as built, so as it's existing. So it's upon that they will issue the fire certificate for. I remember an incident about a filling station that was constructed around Teshi, opposite the military academy, the military training school, the Kofi Annan training center.
And then Otu Barracks,
yes.
Directly opposite.
And then the permit that was issued as to the type of building and construction was different from what was done. And then there was this issue which had to go to the assembly, and then they brought it to me when I was then the regional commander for Greater Accra. I looked at the drawing and the permit and I said, this is what we approve, but what you have there, it is not what is on the ground. And therefore you didn't seek approval, because the law requires that any alteration or addition that you do, you must inform us of that notice and we'll give you approval to go. But you have finished it and now the problem has come, so we cannot give you the fire certificate. And I insisted. They never had a fire certificate for the place.
So I still want to come to you. This one, I'm asking a question that will not bother on fire service. But, towns are developing into cities and other things. So do you think as a nation we must do rezoning?
You see, when it comes to zoning status, that is the work of the special office. That is what we used to call town and country planning. Yes. That is their duty. And they will do that in conjunction with the district assembly. But when they have the plan, fire service is a fire officer is also a member of that district planning committee, so he must also make an input. So if it's put in there, then there's no problem about it. So zoning status is not fire service. It's not our issue. Ours is to provide fire cover. So we have even made it in the new law LI 2249 that every estate developer must have a space for a fire station to be constructed. At least we have asked for 2 plots. The laws are there. It's very, very clear. That is under regulation 9 down. It's there. So I think fire service, we are not worried about what facilities that you are putting in the place. So far as the zoning status allow coexistence, we cannot say that don't put this thing, a filling station with a house or a filling station and a bank. If the zoning status is saying that it's a light industrial area and it's a commercial area, then the facilities must be put in place that all of those facilities must be able to coexist.
So where this problem comes from is when it's a mixed zoning.
Mixed. You see, to be frank, I would prefer we restrict ourselves
to the fire service. Exactly.
And leave the zoning and mix.
In fact, we are still on the adequacy
so let them handle those
of fire safety measures. We'll be talking about early detection and warning systems.
Okay.
But before then, let's go for a short water break. We'll be right back.
Thank you.
I came across power safety technology. So I introduced that into our residents, who are more than 4,000. And over the period, they have testified how power safety technology have saved them when the need arises.
Power safety. Safety is our hallmark.
Welcome to the Ghana National Fire Service TV, simply called the Fire Service TV. This channel is coming up to fill a gap in the Ghanaian television industry. The Ghana National Fire Service was established to prevent and manage undesired fires. And as part of that mandate, we are to conduct public fire safety education. Now, as an institution that was established to provide fire safety education, there is the need to have a channel through which this education will be propagated to the people of this good country, Ghana. This station is being established as alternative to other security channels that deal specifically on security issues. This channel will therefore focus on the safety of the generality of the people of Ghana. This station is therefore going to show the people of Ghana what to do and what not to do in order to have a safe country for all of us. Safety is very practical in nature, and therefore short videos and clips are going to be shown on this particular channel, the Fire Service TV, to the people of Ghana, so that everything we do will be practicalized. You can sit comfortably in your home, watch this channel, and practice it so that we'll be safe in this country. Therefore, I urge all of you Ghanaians to tune into this channel every day of your life so that we will all be safe in our country, Ghana. Thank you.
Hello, viewers. You are welcome. We are still seated here and we are still digesting all these fire safety measures that we are supposed to have in our respective offices, houses, and wherever we find ourselves. Edio Buchi, I'd like to come to, but before I come to that, I want us to talk about, we'll hear about early detection and warning systems. Early detection and warning system. But before we touch on that, sir, this, a bird just whispered to me about what happened on the 9th May, the stadium disaster, where we lost a number of people. Can we say that the structure as it was built did not meet the
required
standards, where people, the occupancy were not taken into consideration when the stairs and other things were being constructed? Because I know you were part of the committee that conducted the investigations into why that number of people were lost.
Okay. Thank you very much. I want to say that that incident was really unfortunate, and then we just celebrated on the 9th of May, and I don't know, I wish the rest of the family that survived very well. Now, during the, the stadiums are always designed and they have means of escape that are well planned. There are aisles in between them. When you look at the aisles, you have 7 seats of 7, or you have 14 on the line. Each of them goes 7, 7. Then you have a staircase in between them. Now, the staircase that comes from the upper floors onto the ground floor, onto the main outside area, are constructed in such a way that the walls are just closed, and when the people get there, maybe they have a balustrade by the side so that they can hold it and move out. Now, during this particular stadium, that side of the building, there was a space in between where the balustrade was and the actual wall. And the balustrades had been put in the stairs by the side.
It narrowed the path.
So it narrowed the path. So as the incident happened and the people were rushing to get out of the place, unfortunately, I don't know what happened, the entrance of that particular gate had been closed, either to prevent people from entering the stadium from that end. So that place had also been closed. So when the incident happened and the people were rushing out, they all got into that space, and then the balustrades that were there gave in, they gave way. And the space that was there is where the people entered. So when the incident happened, most of the people who died were within the staircase. And it is not at the stands where, the tear gas, and they were all running, but everybody wanted to get out. Those who tried to get out died along the staircase area. That is where the problem. So in designing staircases or walk areas for stadiums, we must be extra careful that we don't allow any space. You can put the balustrade by the wall so that people can hold and get, but you don't create it within a space and leave from the wall. So these are the things that we also look at when we are reviewing drawings and we're asking for details of staircase and within theaters and so forth, so that these things will not. It's unfortunate. I will not say they didn't meet the standards, but I did not know the reason why that space was left in, and then the thing gave way for people to enter and die on that. So that is what happened.
Sir, before I also move, final doors, should they open inside or outwards? And then you can also touch on the gates that had been closed. That also served as something that impeded the swift movement of the people. Yes, sir.
This is my question. Yes. You see, that is why we talked about opening direction of doors and windows. Depends on the number of people in the place. In your own house, you can open the door inside. That's why when you're outside, you open inside. You get me? It's 1 or 2 people, so it's not a big deal. But when it comes to even an open area where people are at other ends and another group is at other ends, then we ask for a vision panel, so that even if I'm going to open the door in one direction, I should be able to see whether somebody is coming or nobody is coming. So door opening directions depends. But we always want, where people are gathered, then the door should open outwards in the direction of the person's travel. So you don't allow the door to open to. But when one or two in your own houses, that's what we do. It's very simple because only 2 or 3 or 5 people in the house. But where people are gathered, you cannot open the door from outside. You must open. But if you are opening it, you must put a vision panel to know that there's somebody.
So that you know that there's somebody
there. That's why you open or you don't open. That is it.
Like you rightly stated, I think as to whether you are supposed to put in place such a facility or not, the number of people living within will determine whether you are supposed to use that door or not. So, like he's saying, if 1 or 2 people, that's fine. But where the number is more than necessary.
So commercial structures should conform to that.
Exactly. So that in case of emergency, when there's an emergency, people get panicked. People will be, be afraid.
Most of these commercial structures are also guarding against issues of theft.
Yeah, I understand. But
so they put security ahead of
I
safety.
agree. But
so most of those doors are under key and lock.
I agree. And a number of circumstances is not supposed to be under key and lock. It's supposed to have a special device where when you are moving, you swing the door towards the direction of travel. But the question is, you're talking about thieves, and you're also talking about your property, or you're talking about life. Exactly. So your property and your life, which one is more important? So you design something that will end up saving your life, rather than something that will save your what? Your property. Of course, if a thief is able to break into your room, and that very day the Holy Spirit is with you, okay, the thief will just look at you and then just go out. But if I should strike and you cannot go out because of the kind of door that you have, okay, it will consume everything and consume yourself. So think about the two. Which one do you prefer?
Sorry to, but I have to add something to this. Exactly. Security and safety, they are critical issues. For instance, when you go to most of the banks, they have most of their doors in there are locked for security. But then they have a means of overriding that particular distance and be able to get out in case of emergency. So you, the designer, and the fire officer, the inspector, look at the drawings, will review, and he says, oh, I'm putting a balustrade here, or I'm putting a bar here because of the nature of workers, the type of attitude of workers that I have. Then you have to sit down and discuss that. I also want the people to get out. So what do we do to make the people get out? They say, okay, there's an engineering solution as to a means by which we can override the security for the door to open when there's a fire alarm. So the fire alarm with the control panel, they can link all these things into the panel. So in case there's a fire outbreak, that door will open automatically for people to get out. So they have to sit down and balance the two. Not because of fire alone, you should also lose his produce or product or factory. So we always sit down and discuss that.
So now, viewers, you can also join in by phone calls or your through Facebook. We are streaming live on Facebook on all our social media handles, and it is GNFS Official. If you want to call us, it is 050 960 8744. 050 960 8744. Eddie Obuchi, you talked about if the Holy Ghost is there, or the Holy Spirit. What of if I believe in Tigari?
They are also part of the Holy Ghost.
Okay, so let's look at, we talk about, like I started by saying, we talk about early detection and warning systems. Early detection, what is an early detection and warning system? What is it about?
It has been, research indicates that there's no smoke without fire. So once fire starts, some of these things will begin to move out. Now, research also indicates that when the material is burning, sometimes it comes out with certain products that is not visible to the eye. So there should be that system that will pick that information and then get occupants within the premises informed. That is why you have some of these detection and warning systems. Now, the detection system is made in such a way that once the smoke moves up, or once the smoke mushrooms, let me technically say it, mushrooms at the ceiling level where we have some of these smoke detectors, it will pick up that information.
The mushrooming. What do you mean by mushroom?
What is it, mushrooming or smoke? It's the build up of smoke at the ceiling level. Okay, so when it happens like that and the smoke detector picks it up, it will then link an information to a sounder, which will in turn alert occupants within the premises that there is an emergency. Some of these smoke detectors are linked to call points and sounders. Okay. Now, we have the automatic detection system, and then we have the manual way of raising an alarm. Now, the call points that is connected to the detection system is made up in such a way that when there's an issue and you want to alert people that there's an emergency, what you do is you go to where the call point is, and then you operate the call points to alert people. It gives a call point. There are devices that is part and parcel of the fire detection warning system, advantage points within the premises.
So if I understand what you are saying, the early detection and warning system are what? System designed to detect smoke
exactly
at the early stages.
Yes, sir.
And then the warning sign is to inform people that yes, a detector in a particular room has picked probably smoke, and that everybody should be alert. Is that what it is?
Yes, but the cases when the smoke detector is designed in such a way that when it picks that information, of course there are battery operated smoke detectors, but we are talking about the electrical type. Some of them are designed as that when they pick the information, it will give you what? A sounding that will enable people to go.
That one is automatic.
No,
you do not have to engage it.
Yes. Assuming you are an occupant seated in your office, there is an outbreak of fire, and the smoke or the burning product has not gotten to where the detection system is. Are you saying you sit down and look at it for it to get up to where the smoke detector before it picks it up? No. That is why they've made provision for the call points. So that if you are the first person to sight that, to see that there's an outbreak of fire here, don't wait for the smoke to build up to the ceiling level for the smoke detectors to pick them up. You walk to where the call point is, get it operated so that every occupant within the premises will be informed that there is an emergency.
Okay. So before I add it, before you add yours, we say what? We have IB Anas. It says good one. And then Simon Bonziedu also says very educative, sir. Yes, sir, would you like to add something to it?
He has explained, but that one is for maybe the offices. But our homes, you see, the detection and warning system that being referred here is, how do you know that there's fire or there's smoke? You can have smoke which starts very, very, very small, and you have a smoke detector in the house, maybe that will use the battery, it will pick up and give you a sound, a beeping sound that there is smoke. That same thing can also give you what we call false alarm. If you have mist in the room or you have ants entering it, can also gives you an alarm. Or dust can also give an alarm. So at least if you have that thing there and you hear the noise, then you move and find out whether it's really fire or not. So that is what, but it's combined, as he said, it detects and gives you an alarm. Now he talked about call points and other things. Most homes do not have that one. And where in the offices they have that one, that is when the building is occupied and people are in that risk, they can put off the fire. But this education that we're doing, we want to touch on where a lot of lives are lost in their homes. The smoke detectors are not too expensive, but they are very, very, very powerful, because when you sleep and you get smoke getting into you, you will go off, knock off. Fire will just heat up and build up. We have talked about smoke. There's another one which we call the heat detector. That is kept in the kitchen. Because if you allow your kitchen or a heat to build up, the things around, if you have polythene or containers around where the heat is building, they can also spark the fire, and then the smoke will still pick it up. So we always have a heat detector advised in the kitchen, and they are rated in such a way that if you fix the temperature at 35 and it's beyond 35, it will also sound that there's something, that the heat in the area is also building up. So it is very, very important to
in
have
that instance.
Yes.
Then you need to ventilate.
Yes, you
the
have
kitchen.
to open. Very good. So it is a means to tell you that there's something going on in your place, and we want to appeal. I'll use the opportunity that smoke detector is not too expensive, but it saves a lot of lives. So if each and everyone can have at least one smoke detector in his house, because if you don't have the smoke detector, it doesn't tell you what are you going to do with the extinguisher. So it is very, very critical. That is why we call it warning. It warns you, it detects and warns you, and lets you be prepared to handle the fire.
Yeah, so viewers, what we are saying is fire extinguishers. When you look at the definition of a fire extinguisher, we are supposed to use the fire extinguisher at the incipient stages of the fire. We'll be coming to suppression systems, so we'll talk about it. So you need these detection systems in your houses. But sir, let's look at a warehouse. Can we use a smoke detector?
Yes.
Or there are other detectors that use other modes by which, like the beam detectors and other.
Yes.
So sir, can you also take us through?
You are right. You see, that's why I'm saying that you always need a fire expert or a fire consultant to look at what you want to do, and then you do a design or engineering to solve your problem. You have a warehouse which has a very big void. There's a lot of space in there. Dust comes in. You want to save it. You cannot use a point detector to solve the problem. We have other ones like optical beam detectors. There are various forms of it. Then they would design in such a way that it will be put in the warehouse in a way that and positioned at strategic locations. So when there's even a smoke or light that passes between the beam, it alerts that there's something going on. The detector will pick it up, send the signals to the control panel, and then you know that there's a fire in the place. So it is not a matter of detect smoke or heat detector for everything. Every situation has its own. Look at the big pipelines that that takes our fuel from the port to the tanks and all this. They all have detection system there. Some have frame detectors, some have fuel detectors. All these are this. So it depends on what you're protecting, what the fire cover you want to give, and that is what the consultant and the expert will tell you. So if you are not into that field, please stay off to avoid yourself trouble. Advise as an expert.
In fact, yes, we know we have a lot.
Yes.
But tell us some of these detections, like they mentioned the optical beam detectors. What is the system? How do they detect? And if you know some of these, you know we have gas detectors, and please walk us through some of these detectors that we must get in our offices, our homes. If you can tell us the ones in our respective houses, the ones which you would use like the warehouses and other places we mentioned. Can you please walk us? And then when my boss, Deputy Kwatin, was talking about those fire safety measures, he mentioned quite a number of things. Landing valves. What is a landing valve? And all those things. Let's touch on these detectors and then
Okay. Let me look at the first one, the landing valve. That is fine. You see, under normal circumstances, during the construction of a building, a whole lot of calculation goes in there. The number of steps, the size of the landing, etc., etc. Now, a landing is a space provided at the end of what? A staircase, whether moving upwards or moving downwards. Now, every landing is supposed to have what I just been mentioned, a landing valve, which is connected to what we call a riser, whether wet or dry. So that in case of emergency, if firefighters are supposed to fight the fire within, they can just do the connection of their hoses to that particular landing valve, and then straight away the hoses run to where they are supposed to fight the fire. So basically that is why that device is called what? A landing valve, which is provided at a landing, so that one can probably rest before moving to the next step, or rest before taking off to the next step. So that's how it is. Now, to your next question.
No, I don't want us to touch on the detection system, because once you've gone to the rising, let's ask questions concerning the suppression systems. Unless maybe Deputy Kwatin wants to touch on.
The landing valve position that he has explained it is. We have two types. We have the wet and the dry. Now, the landing valve is to help the firefighter. It is not meant for the use of the occupants of the premises. It's for firefighters. And the landing valve has an outlet on the ground floor, which we call the inlet breaching. So within the inlet breaching, if it's a dry one, the fire tender packs connect it from a hydrant into the fire tender, and the fire tender will pump the water from the tender to the valve to the floor. Each of the floors have a valve, closing valve there. So if the fire is on the 5th floor, the firefighter cannot carry the hose from the ground floor to if he hasn't got a fireman's lift. He can't carry the hose to that floor. So we create an area which we call what they call it, fire cabinet. In there. Hoses are put there. So when the fire officer gets there, he couples. When you say couples, he puts the edges of the hose reel
the female coupling
and then
the male
pull
coupling.
it straight into the area for firefighting. That is the dry one. But some of them, depending on the situation, in Ghana we don't have the water, so we want to use the dry one. In Europe they also have water, but because of their weather there's no, so they also don't want the wet system. So but here, because you don't have water, if you have a wet dryer, it's all right. So the water will be charged. So when the firefighter gets to the floor, he connects the hose and straight does the firefighting. So it's on the floor of where the stair landing is. That sends you up or down to the area of the floor to do the firefighting. That is the issue. So there are two types, wet and dry.
Wet and dry.
Yes.
Viewers, we are still on fire safety matters, and we are trying to address some of the issues. We know you don't understand some of the things. Our lines are still opened. You can call and then ask your questions. And on Facebook too, you can send your messages. We'll read them. The number is 050-96-908-744. Let me take it again. 0509 8744. Yes, Edu, I know we've started the suppression system already. But when we say suppression system, what is the suppression system?
Thank you very much. I think in all the systems, some of them are such that without someone going there to activate the system, it will activate itself automatically, raise an alarm, and then check the spread of fire. So the system are arranged and connected to a point where if it should activate, it will start discharging the content of the cylinders in order to take care of the situation on the ground. Now, when that thing is discharged, it prevents what?
Edu, let me come. I think we are at a loss. We want to know that there are systems put in place to help douse fires or reduce the occurrences of what? Fires. So when you tell us that, we'll understand. Then you before you move forward.
Okay.
You see, I must make this thing very clear. Firefighting or fire safety is scientific.
Exactly.
It is not a matter of water and this and that, as people think. Fire is science biased.
Exactly.
If you understand science and you know what goes into it, you understand firefighting. You ask for a suppression system. The systems that we have what the ones that you can have access to when you are present. And there's one that will operate by itself in your absence. So depending on the situation, that's why I'm saying it's quite an engineering issue. The client tells you that I have a telecommunication room or I have a server room, which the server must work for 24 hours. And therefore, how do I protect? Because heat is generated and I use the air conditioner and so forth. And because of the air condition, I can always also not put people in there 24/7. So how do I solve this problem? Then you, the engineer, will sit down and say, okay, the kind of system you have, maybe we need a total suppression system, which means that we need something that operates on its own after it has detected the fire, and then it will put it off without your presence. Are you getting me?
Yes,
For instance, another one will say, oh, I have a tall building. I have occupants in there, and they are always 24. Some go on leave, they don't stay. So therefore, How do I protect it? It's okay, fine. Then I think I will need a sprinkler system for you in such a way that when the fire starts within a room or within the kitchen, it will pick the signal to the detector. It will pick and automatically the sprinkler will work and wet the place and take care of you.
So when you are prescribing a sprinkler, then you must know things that will not conform to water must not be placed there. In there. So you look out for all these things.
All these facilities. So it's not a matter of extinguisher. Exactly. Now, extinguisher is important, but it's as useless as anything when it's sitting in a room where there's nobody.
Exactly.
Extinguisher does not work and operate by itself like the suppression systems. Somebody must use the extinguisher. So when you have the suppression system, they also have an alarm attached, as well as the detectors that also have the alarm. So if you are available, you take the extinguisher and go in there and look at the seat of fire and put it off. So extinguisher is useful when the premises is occupied, either 24/7 or half day. But when the building is not occupied, then the suppression system is very, very ideal. But also you can use the extinguisher.
Exactly. So because we are going to deal with a lot of people out there, and those ones, they do not even know how to manage them. But we want to know when you bring in the fire extinguisher. You know, sir, I'm directing it to Edio Buche. Sir, when do you reach out for a fire extinguisher?
Extinguishers, when we look at the definition of an extinguisher, it's a device that is used the moment the fire starts and it is in its small state. So when we say
we know fire has 4 stages.
Yeah. So
we have the early stage,
the introduction stage. We have the growth stage. We have the steady stage. Then we have the decay stage. One is not supposed to wait for the fire to build up to the steady stage before using an extinguisher. So once the fire starts and it is at that level, incipient stage, what you have to do is to follow the appropriate protocols, pick the exact fire extinguisher, and then get the fire extinguisher.
So picking the exact fire extinguisher also comes into play?
Yes, because we keep different types of materials in our buildings as to whether that of dry powder or carbon dioxide or water can extinguish or not. It is the content that will determine what we are supposed to use. Please
give us the definition of a fire extinguisher, and then we close. Maybe next week we'll continue from there.
I think basically it's a...
No, but before you do that, I want us to look at it. When you go to the filling station, or most developments, I don't know who normally goes to conduct those assessment or fire audits there. Most of these extinguishers are placed closer to the hazard, instead of away from the hazard. Because what I know is that when there is fire, when you are able to identify what will serve as a potential hazard, and there is an emergency, you are supposed to run away. So where should we even place the fire extinguisher?
Thank you very much. I think in most of the filling stations, yes, we have the fire extinguishers positioning close to the pumps, which I think is not the best. Of course, it is good to position the fire extinguisher close to the pump, but it's better to keep it away from the pump. So out of the two, you can judge and then pick your answer. So I think we also try to, continue to educate people that placing it here is good, but it's better to keep it away from where
because everybody runs away from the danger.
Yes, exactly. Of course, when there's a spark, we all have to run away first before gaining confidence to come and take care of the situation. So if the weapon is closer to you and you run away,
it becomes a white elephant.
That is it. That is it.
All right, viewers. Also soon we are coming to the end. I'll take their last points and then we can continue next week. So, Edio Buche.
Yeah.
Well, what would you sum up for us?
Viewers, my short message to all and sundry is that get a smoke detector in your premises, get a fire detected in order to save life and property. And once life and property is saved, it is this wonderful nation of ours that we are saving. Thank you very much.
Sir, before you go, this is how far time can permit us.
Okay.
I know there are a lot to touch on, but your final words before we go.
Yes. I think I must make it very clear that maybe the ideas people have about firefighters or firefighting is like putting off fire, but I must be honest, it's science biased. Fire is science biased, and all fire officers in the field, please be interested in knowing more about science issues and then you advise based on engineering solutions to solve problems. We don't have generic answers to firefighting, but the situation will determine what you must apply. So if you are advising either a fire consultant or whatever it is, please, and I advise my fellow fire officers to do a lot of reading on fire issues on the net. There are a lot of information, so you can provide knowledge and information to the people so that they can be safe themselves and the country will be safe at large. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, viewers, in fact, to our publics, when I say our publics, we have the fire safety, we have the fire service public, and then the general public. To the fire safety public, I'm meeting with the creme de la creme. I have learned a lot today. I know you've also learned something today. And to our general public, what we are being told is that we should make sure we adhere to fire safety standards. If you don't understand anything, go to the closest fire station in your area, and a lot of these things will be explained to you. They say what? We have modern fire standards, and we are supposed to learn and observe them to the latter. Viewers, once again, this is me, Station Officer 1, Michael Walter Okine, sitting in for ADO 1, Joan Ajay Jamesi. Till we meet next week. Bye-bye.
Mesekpo. Ka etefe kpokpo ya la ni mekpo etefe
you. Mokpo tefe nyatefe mesekpo.
Kele ko le gbo we.
Oh. Aye ma uglo, e mesekpo. Wo va wo chima la ngomo. Chima la tenda ngi amo tanka mo. La ko je. Azo vo nyangi manya ba zo china no mo afia park dari. Zo china no mo afia park dari. Abana ngozo ko no yoko quickly. Me ma afia ga ba yere chiji panyo. Ya ka jigara mi sana even TV ji kra ga ro ma kra gate. Poro no mi se o short na chi. Ga ka le mi ambo ho afia ma kra ji ba mi ta short na chi na ma obo.
Mejo na. Amizibe dem yasi.
Ya ma ku ko
aha.
O amade kema ye de do afa mako efe do no da siuta ne ejojo ho yo we by omis wa ko chi le for ma fa yi o ma tan yi fi bi pele fufulu ko agboba yo yi do wa fo mekade
o gbo na bene ejojo he fire service to wo gbo na echi me no bo ma fa over esenya mi epo a alo ekpo tefe po a
ma se po kaka nyanya yo tepe me kpokpo a ye me kpo de ke wo va yi ke chi mo no vo mo na o kpo ala be my experience de ka kpo me kama kwa kpo ba a chi a oza is a story building ta yo nya o hold nya is like a gun o chi jo ta mo na nya ba chi ma le wo mo no nya me kpo ba what the ku fu bolu ava a see now.
Mr. Nyamyekwa.
We amisi egbesi agbegbe.
Okay.
Ngake no nenye be nyatepe onyo nyatepe menyo enyinyime kpo tepe kpo.
Okay.
Ta nyimata won agbolo be jobi amedo ape ko ya fire service to ku va chimelo fe hu mo ko ya gagbotro we ire chijipe ne yova.
Okay.
Nyime kpo gake amu ogbole zan himeseta ako nche matango akokpe.
Okay, merci. Efoma olike we chedi.
Nche mese sigbe kpo alebe nche mese koku de wenye be obe atike alo nuke he leve de na webe wako pede chikemi akoba chijola meli o ata ojo sigbe lenya tepe me nche nyime kpo tepe na duku nye kpo ya o gake me nya se kpo be ejo sigbe kpo gake nuke wo ma bu nye be kemi no le sigbe di leke ape wa ba do de ejo chi fie la nenye be chi mele no mo de kemi wa ba do de fi mi be oyichi ejo chi pe aha.
Okay you ta leke he mi gbelebe yo mekpo tefe kpo wa ya ko emi ma jo gbede capella fide kebe fire service to we ye de ejo chi fe ko alo yo we be ejo le fi ko wa yi ko e chi ma no wo me gbede ela bena ne mi afe wo we he mi yo be tender he gbele he chi anyi mele do wa okran bochela e chi no na me ta mi afe e se de kamiko wa na do enye be ejebe re sia yi he evuo anu anyila echine nome bene ejojo oyowela aje mozreka menye bejo ajo wa yo wevopi anu be yi la etidi bene akode buo me apene na yo tagi sia yi he evuo nya park dan yakula echileme tamede kukune mi mega peda make mi we he no nya ke mi nu esia yo
mi no sa ke menya tefe yo
hwese be menya tefe yo
because
megblo de kepo wa
you megblo de kepo because gere mi pona be nka fire hydrant to let tefe kan na o no chiku no anye be maybe no ejochi be maybe echeba vola ya fine akebe o ye ejochi pe ko mo echimela bo mo be ya me kai be elemo
abeleke he mi pe a mi va ehobloji eye mi va doje kle amewe gede weche o mepo etefe kpo be ne ejojo a mi meva kple echio eye amegede we ha onya be mi le edogede wa tamida akpena mi bele ke he mi doje kle mi kpede mi ahun be edosio ke ojebene mi wa nyawe bene wa dego eye mi afe dukone wa yijina mi akpena mi kaka nkonyenye edi owun wala se akochu agbenyu yamo emera ebe ya efiri henara